evening, we're going to call our second meeting, the special school board meeting to order for Monday, January 6th, 2020. Put my glasses back on. Each school board member has been properly notified in writing on December 16th, 2019 via email and hand-delivered the intent to establish an official school board meeting to be held January 6th, 2020, and the purpose of the meeting. Proper notices have been posted on the Administration Building bulletin board, the front entrance of the Administration Building, and all educational centers 24 hours prior to the meeting date, and the meeting was advertised in one local newspaper. Therefore, this meeting is called to order. We're going to begin the meeting with the pledge to the flag. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me for reading this hand-handedly. Please join us in a moment of silence as we reflect on those serving in the United States Armed Forces, both past and especially present, the elected leaders of the state of Pennsylvania, and the elected leaders of our nation. We have a great deal to be thankful for in our community. We move on to item 3 on our agenda, which is public comment on agenda items. Information, proposals, and statements from individuals or delegations pertaining to the voting agenda items, number 6 on our agenda. Speakers are to indicate your name, township of residence, and the items on the agenda to which your comments are addressed. Speakers, please try and limit yourselves to no more than 3 minutes. Please understand that this is not a time for dialogue with the board, but rather the board will listen to all comments and consider them in future deliberations. If there is anything that we do feel we can respond to during this meeting. Do we have any public comment? Seeing none, we will move on to item 4, board communication. Ms. Carmine, do we have any communications?
I have no communications.
Item 5, board discussion. Do we have any board discussion on any topics from the board?
I think we're going to.
Paul's
Carl, I just have one for Jack, just so I understand, like, all these emails and things that we got over the past,
Right, they will
why are
come.
they not board communicated?
They will be at the next regularly scheduled school board meeting.
Okay.
So I will read those, I mean, I'll paraphrase. At the January regular school board
Got it,
meeting.
okay.
Because we were
So this
receiving
is
it up to
because
the
it's a
last
special
minute,
one.
yes. Because it's a good turnaround.
Okay.
With no further discussion, we'll move on to item 6, new business. That is 6.1, approval of the appointment of a certificated or certificated?
Yes, certificated.
Certificated position.
Yes.
We have, do I need to read the whole bit?
No, you
or
don't.
just okay. Then we are going to be seeking a motion in support of the approval of the appointment of a certificated position as presented in the board supplemental information. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 6.2. Approval of appointment of a non-certificated position, and I will be seeking an approval of the appointment of the non-certificated position as included in your board supplemental materials. Can I get a motion for that? Second to Lydia, thank you. Any discussion?
Just a question, is that a replacement, is that?
Yes.
Okay.
That's a replacement.
All
Or
right,
resignation.
and will be part of the budget anyway, right? Come to this meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
No further discussion then. Can I have all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Item 6.3 is ratification approval of on-call pay. This is the recommendation that we move out of the prior, oh no, this is not, I'm sorry. That's right, that's going to come to the next meeting, not this one. This is ratification of the on-call pay for security officers as presented. Actually, if I can ask Dr. Moya to just give a quick explanation of why we're doing this.
Right, so a flat rate. So we have security guards on call around the clock, 24 hours a day, and so this is the rate at which we would be paying them, now that we've gone to that 24-hour.
Oh, is this a change from?
This is a change, right, they were not on call 24 hours a day.
Right, it's really to comply with the Fair Labor Standards Act, because they're on call, so you have to pay them something even if they don't get a
Right,
call.
before we were paying them if they had a
Only
call.
if they had a call, and so.
Right, but when you put somebody on call, in order to comply with the Fair Labor Standards, you have to pay them for being on call for you, so.
So it's not precisely an option for us. This
Right,
is-
not really.
And the rate is
Yes.
in line with what other school districts do for on-call?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
In that case, I'd like to ask for a motion for approval or ratification of the on-call as presented.
So moved.
Second, and John is the second. Any discussion, further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much, motion passes. We move on to item 6.4, and this is the approval of an accelerated budget opt-out resolution certifying tax rate to be within the inflation index. This is what we just discussed at the last meeting, that we're moving forward with. If there's any discussion, we can have it at this point, but can I get a motion to move this forward, or to pass? Second?
Second.
Second, Melissa. Thank you. Any more discussion on this topic? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. We'll now move on to item 7.1, which is public comment. And this is information on any item at all, not including agenda items. Please, again, indicate your name and township for residents, and speakers are going to limit themselves, please, to 3 minutes. I need to take the green glasses off.
I do. Is there something I'm supposed to sign?
Yeah, do we have a sign in here? Oh, there.
Okay. Can I sign it after?
Yeah, you can. That's okay. We trust you.
I just wanted to say, at the last board meeting, I had asked if we could receive an update regarding progress on, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but Objective 4 of the Student Growth and Achievement Goal, which reads, seek parent, teacher, and administration input into revised scheduling and programming for the OJRSB Middle School. In particular, I was wondering about certain action steps that were set to have occurred in September and October and in November regarding some parent workshop meetings or input sessions, particularly looking at the IB, the middle year's IB and the pre-AP program. After the meeting and in a subsequent follow-up call, Dr. Soder was nice enough to spend quite a bit of time providing me with an in-depth update on why the administration has decided at this time that it's not feasible for the middle school to pursue consideration of any further programming changes, as the focus right now is to first address some scheduling concerns and issues in the middle school. In an attempt, from my understanding, to bring scheduling there more in line with the scheduling at the high school. In particular, it seems that the bottleneck that is created in the middle school due to the capacity constraint for the cafeteria has led to the necessity of the team time period. Dr. Soder mentioned that the proposed schedule changes would look to potentially, one of the proposed potential changes would be to eliminate the team time period in an effort to be able to extend instructional time in the other class periods by approximately 5 minutes or so. My questions and concerns regarding that information are as follows. As a parent of a middle school student who has a GIEP, team time is the period where gifted students receive their only pull-out individualized gifted support, which occurs anywhere from 1 to 3 days in a 6-day cycle, depending on their schedule and what they opt to do. As a parent of a student who also participates in band, team time is a period where twice in a 6-day cycle, the full band, rather than in their separate class periods of band, all come together during team time to rehearse together. And I believe it's my understanding that some of the other music programs do that as well, chorus, and I don't know if orchestra does or not, given that they have to go all the way over to the high school. But it is also a period where kids are able to make up gym and swim classes that they might have missed due to absences. It is a time where they are able to make up missed classwork because of absences. Also just in general, if there's like group projects that they need to complete, I know he's done that a couple times where they've gotten together during team time to finish those. So I would like to understand when these additional services and activities would occur if team time were to be removed from the schedule. And then going back to my original concerns regarding objective number 4 of that growth and achievement goal, I still would like to know how parent input would be sought, regardless of whether it's the scheduling or the programming issues that are being focused on, because the goal is worded such that that would occur on both of those different areas of focus. And then lastly, just again, in terms of the overall transparency and communication, while I truly do appreciate Dr. Soder's personalized follow-up, I know there are many other middle school parents who would like to have access to these updates as well. So I urge you to please consider ways that the larger community can have access to information and updates on topics of concern that are brought before the board and administration, not just to those individuals who raise the concerns and ask the questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other comment?
Something. Deb Sussmuse, North Coventry. One thing I want to encourage you as you're going through this budget process to visit schools. I'm not saying you haven't, but really be there, look at what the needs are, because there's going to be a lot of decisions. I do kind of question spending money on a study when there's things educationally money could be spent on. I also am a little disappointed to hear as a substitute in the district that $10 extra a day, where, you know, I could sub in other districts there, you know, $30, $40. I don't sub for the money. Some of you know my background, others don't. It's not why I'm there. I do enjoy being involved in O&J where my kids go to school. So $10 a day, I don't think is going to solve your substitute issues extra. That's just my personal opinion, talking to other substitutes. So maybe that's something you need to think about there that you're doing as there. I don't know, you have a lot of decisions to make, you know, and also to go over what Carrie said. I did give my email address to Mrs. White to be informed as a middle school parent, and we have not been informed of the updated process there. So that has not occurred at all. You know, so those are things that I would encourage you to do your due diligence and make sure that we are doing what you have set forth that you said you would do.
Thank you.
Lisa Beal, Warwick Township. I just have a comment for this board about sort of transparency and communication. It's always been a pet peeve of mine that none of the agendas for the public come out with attachments. And you have to wait, and sometimes you're in a very small room and can't even read them when you're in the back of the room. And I know, Carl, you posted something about it, about that it has to do with context and content and the presentation. However, I'm not a dumb person. I can figure out graphs. I can figure out a draft calendar. There's no reason that that stuff can't be on the agenda for the public to look at prior to coming. It may help answer questions that people have prior to coming and know whether it's something they want to come and answer or not. That's just my comment. It's been a pet peeve that it's not available and it's really hard to read. Even if you have them available as handouts for people when they get there, if you can't post them beforehand so that they can read them, it would be helpful.
Any other comments?
Carolyn Mickle-Savage, East Coventry, just so everyone got it. OJ Roberts does not have an activities fee. Other schools in socioeconomic equivalent have an activities fee. That helps offset some of the cost so we can take our tax dollars and put them into our education. We need to start looking at different ways to generate revenue besides taxing our community. We have East Coventry Elementary School sitting there. This is a tax burden. It's not being used. We're getting no financial incentive from this. As a board, you need to look at these things. It's not just doing the studies and making those decisions. It's looking at what we have now, making the best and most efficient uses of our resources. When you ignore this and don't look what other school districts are doing, such as an activities fee, which could max out at $250 a family, That brings in what? $500,000 into your budget. Great Valley has an activity fee for elementary, middle, and high school. Most of others have it for middle and high. We need to stop burdening our community, build our schools, but do it so that we all can survive and thrive.
Thank you. Sir?
It's just a kind of a point. Is there a meeting the 21st? Because that schedule doesn't show it. It's in your agenda.
Yes.
It's the regular meeting.
It's the regular
It's the
meeting.
business meeting.
It would normally be on the 20th, but the 20th is a federal.
Yeah, but
holiday.
it's not, somebody went to great lengths to create the agenda for tonight, and it doesn't show that as a future meeting.
Our bad. Thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, I believe it simply got dropped off before it got put in there. Thank you, we will remedy that.
Hi, Heather McCurry, East Coventry. I guess I want to make a very brief comment, start the clock. I appreciate you, Carl, bringing the committee person in here, the board people from Twin Valley in here. And that committee thing happens at the very beginning of board service. And I know it's confusing, but I would actually, I think that was great if you could bring in maybe somebody from Springport and also from Downingtown East, because I feel that OJ Roberts and the people here want to be like those schools with their athletics and their activities and whatnot. And they actually, I did a quick little look on the niche.com. They come in at A+, we're an A, Twin Valley's a B. So they actually have as many committees as we do. So I think too, a note when I got on the board, public discussion, whatever, but my impression of the committees was it had dropped off and people had just been meeting at CAL meetings and there was never any, not to say work, but we never got to hear anything great that People Services did, like the guidance or special ed programs. So I guess the concern would be making too many changes too fast before you guys are in here and understand how the whole process works, because the committees and the work that they do are also tight to the goal setting for the district. So I look around and like Deb said, maybe go visit other schools, like go see Conestoga. They don't have that many, well, to go visit other schools, they don't have as many committees as Downtown Springport, but I think you should look around before you make decisions.
I think Deb said to
Visit our own school.
Visit our own
Sorry, yeah, our
schools regarding
schools, sorry.
budget issues and what there's needs and that kind of thing. That's what encouraging you to visit what we do. We do a great job. We have a great staff. We have great things going on here. I am not, that's why I lived in Warwick School District in Lancaster and Lidditz. When we moved here, my job was to look at school districts. My husband's job was to find houses to look. ONJ was my top choice to move into, and I want it to continue to be that way.
We'll count that as your second public comment.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. Limited to 2. Any other public comment before we move on to our next item, which is board request for information? Before we do that, I have heard your concern last time and shared a little bit of it, but we were obviously very busy and brand new and trying to get things structured. Will you please allow us the chance to put some thought to how we can address some of those concerns? Not everybody shares my love of big, long meetings and discussion, but I actually think they're really effective. So, but that is a thing I've got to get in with everybody else, and that's the sort of scheduling and planning stuff we're allowed to kind of do on our own. I believe we'll ask the lawyer about that. So we will get to that, and we will also follow up and be able to answer your questions about team time and the other things, because frankly, I don't know enough about it, but I think we can address it properly this time. The substitute teacher issue, I would welcome your input on what you think would help with that, and I want to make sure that you didn't have the sense that we thought of, a mere $10 solves the problem.
No,
but it is something we can move it forward, and that's something I think we will put some more look to. I am, this deal, I'm not religiously attached or not attached to whether we have attachments on the thing. It is the justification by which we have not attached things. So that's something we can discuss as well and just see what the general feeling is, as well as what the attorneys think it should be. And that's another great thing to look at, what do other school districts do. If everybody else has it all in advance, then our excuses might not seem like very good excuses after all. Ms. Mickle-Savage, we will certainly be looking at all the other options that are there as part of this. So these other things, they have to be part of the discussion, and I know that the activity fees. I apologize for lack of calendar listing. That's just something that we missed. And we're going and talking to other schools generally about committee structure, about other things, because we have so many new people, everybody's interested in simply learning. So even if we change nothing, at least we'll know a lot more about what's going on. So that is my response to just the public comment. I don't know if anybody else has.
Just to piggyback on Twin Valley, graciously volunteered to come, and we contacted them, and they offered to come and speak at our public meeting. A very different process.
Right, and we actually went and put them publicly so people saw we were putting this thought to it, because we could have just dumped them in a back room, gotten our talk, and everybody could sort of see that. So thank you for pointing that out.
Tonight, the board took a rather unprecedented move by adjusting the substitute pay. Okay, that is an action that the board does once a year.
In April.
In April, and only once a year. And so I appreciate you adjusting that at this time of the year, because we will be looking at it again in April, and the board will have a chance to adjust it again in April. But it was a rather unprecedented move that they made in response to the concern for our substitute crisis. With regards to the middle school update, we don't have an update. Is because Mr. Stoltzfus is working with Dr. Soder and Dr. Marchini on developing a schedule. And so this team time and what's going to happen with team time, we don't have anything to report yet because they're still working through it. It's not, we don't operate in our school district in a top-down manner where the principal just says this is the way it is. It's done in collaboration with teachers in a very thoughtful way. And so the process is taking much longer than anticipated to overcome the hurdles of that middle school schedule that we have encountered. And so that's why there's no parent update, because the update would be there's no update to what we're doing. So it's not a matter of stonewalling parents, it's that there isn't an update to be had because of the process that they're going through to revise that schedule and look at some different options.
To be clear, I did not want to imply that it was stonewalling. I think the idea is that communication disconnect is just part of the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's nothing to say, but they're not hearing it, they don't know that we've got nothing to say.
I mean, you might need to include that in his weekly parent newsletter or something, but the process is ongoing because we are pressing them to have a schedule in place so that their process can parallel the high schools, where students are knowing what their courses and what their schedule is going to look like before they go home for the summer. So that's part of what's creating that hurdle there.
Thanks for that.
Sure.
Any other comments from the board?
After this meeting, the new school board members are taking a tour of the school. And then on Friday, the new school board members are visiting schools. So I am the van driver. And
watch out.
It's good.
Yep.
Got a heavy foot.
I do. I wanted to be a race car driver. So we will be on tour on Friday.
We are fully into 8.1 since, so board request for information, a comment or board request for information.
Yeah, so if we're jumping into that, I just want to kind of piggyback on, this might be discussion / request for information. I'd like to understand better the schedule issues at the middle school and the bottleneck around whether it's the lunch scheduling stuff and how much of that's driving this, and then the academic programs like IB and those other things. If we could get a report to just kind of update us where we outside of just the communication, maybe expectation reset with parents, if you could update the board on kind of what the plan going forward is, what the bottlenecks are, and what short term we're doing, but like long term, is it something going to be required to help undo that bottleneck, or
I was planning for when you go on your tour at the middle school for Mr. Stoltz to talk to you specifically about that and the process where they are, in addition to you looking to at the cafeteria and some of the space constraints that they have at the school while we were there.
Okay.
Was what my plan was. And then when we toured the high school, Mr. Richardson would be talking about IB and where we're going next year with that.
And that also just the middle school IB and
No,
just
that's separate.
just high school,
Just
okay.
high school.
So in the middle school academic stuff, if we could just make that a sort of a request of.
Yeah, and tie it back to the original announcement that got all the 6th to 7th grade parents upset, which was the removal of the science honors. Like I think there's a
de-leveling.
total disconnect in my head as to how the cafeteria is affecting that. Yeah.
And one of the other things that has sort of repeatedly come up is, in reality, nobody who doesn't have to do this and volunteer to do it really needs to sit out this late for these things. So the ability to have that ability to watch a meeting, so we've talked about the other school districts that do just general streaming, Facebook Live, and you can sit at your dinner table and watch it, and you can stop watching when you get disinterested and go back and just watch the portion. If we could get sort of a rundown on what would be involved in us sort of matching what other districts are doing with that, and what a timeline could be, because my understanding is a few of them do it literally with they set up the laptop and they go on Facebook, and that's the extent of it. So that might be a way that everybody can be more fully engaged and get the information they need. And then if we give a presentation, it's not just to a parent, it could be literally to all the parents, because we're simply answering a question in a little bit more detail. Thanks.
I have a question for Jackie.
Yeah.
So I feel like, and I apologize, I can't remember when we discussed this, but there was a point where you had mentioned that you had taken a deep dive into funding and what we could do to generate more funds that weren't taxes. And I don't remember when that was.
We did, and it's been a while ago, with this board originally, I think it was this board, I don't know, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but we did look at alternative sources of revenue, the things, and or cutting expenses, the things that we had brought forward at that time, understanding this is a new board.
Yeah.
We can look at these things again. We did bring a proposal for student activity fees. We did bring a proposal to eliminate student activity buses, because they're not used very much. So we can certainly bring all of these things back when we discuss our individual costs and our budgets where they're impacted.
Yeah.
We can definitely do that.
In actuality, we could charge every student to ride any bus. We do not even have to provide transportation. Once we provide it, we have to provide it for everybody. We could charge. I'm not saying I do. But if somebody wants to open that box of worms.
No, guys, Melissa.
Pro. Okay. Do we have any other requests for information or discussion? Yes.
I can't even remember if I mentioned this to you at one point, Jackie. Somebody had told me that if you want to go and pay in person to pay your school taxes, that you have to drive down to Westchester.
That's true. I mean, we have online electronic payment system.
Right, so for people who want to, stick something in a physical envelope and deliver it to a person,
Right.
is there any way we could set up?
Yeah, I mean, they should put a stamp on it.
But is there any way that we could have like a drop-off point at a post office or a bank in our district, just as a little
Well, they could do
agreement?
any post office with.
A stamp.
Every post office.
No,
Okay.
I will share that we are working
Because
with
the
people.
deadline's whatever, they don't, they need.
Okay,
So if anybody who has a hardship,
So if they mail it, it's
issue
still
for
in
and somebody who has a
them.
hardship or there's a senior citizen, we're working with them individually.
Okay.
We don't have the capacity or means to collect 30,000 tax bills personally and then get them over
Right.
to the system, the company that processes them. But we are working with any individual.
All right, so put the stamp on your envelope.
Or pay online.
Any of the blue boxes will take your tax.
Or tell the code tax office that they have a hardship. I mean, I would
Okay.
just tell them to do that.
All right.
So this time, read between the lines. Are there any more comments or requests for information? No? All right. Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
No.
All right, we're adjourned. We're out of here. Thank you very much.
All right, here we got it.
Mrs. Seeley is here for the